All right, everyone. After 9 months, I'm finally done procrastinating, and I'm gonna put out another slappy trick tip. So, this one's gonna be about slappy back 50s. I know there's like a lot of YouTube videos on slappy back 50s, but I've seen a bunch of them, and the way that people seem to explain it just had me thinking like there's an easier way to learn the trick. I didn't learn it because of any of the tips that I saw on YouTube. I had to figure it out kind of on my own, the best way to kind of go about it initially. So I'm gonna do this one, and just like I always do, I'm gonna go over foot placement, I'm gonna go over your approach, and then also like where your weight should be, all of those things. Even like kind of getting into it, going slow and everything like that. I'll do a bunch of different angles so you guys can see the angle that I'm kind of swerving in at and everything like that. And but before all that, I'm gonna get some warm-ups in. I did like one board slide and one slappy back 50. Anyways, let's get to it. Let's get warming up. All right, now that I'm more than enough warmed up, I actually invested too much time into that. That was probably a good, like, I don't know, 15 minutes or so, like just trying to work through everything. This curb's kind of a little rounded and it's kind of slanted. It goes downhill and then it also slants to the right. So like, it's kind of hard to hold certain things, especially like on my backside side. Yeah, my backside side, it's just, I don't know, it just gets kind of tricky. But anyways, so first thing we're going to talk about when we're getting into this, we're going to talk about foot placement, which extremely important, because I feel like a lot of people are just like, put your feet in both pockets and that's all you got to do. Well, it's a little bit more than that, because if you have your back foot in the pocket as well, most people's natural reaction is to like kind of press on the tail just a little bit, and that will F up the trick immediately. Like, I mean, you can get into a slappy back 50 by pressing on the tail, but typically it'll kind of put you into this like weird feeble where you'll stick, or you'll go into board slide and you'll get smoked, which is where nobody wants to be. So yeah, I'm gonna show you this foot placement first, how you should do it when you're very first learning the trick. After that, you can shift your feet a little bit. All right, so when you're very first learning this trick, what I always tell people to do is your front foot, the front edge of your front foot, I'm goofy, so reverse this if you're regular. Right where you feel the slope of the nose is where you want that edge of your shoe, like just so you can kind of feel it. That way you can put a little bit of pressure into it and it won't nosedive, okay? And for your back foot honestly, for back 50s, is really useless when you're like getting into it. Like, you don't have to have your foot on the tail at all. And it's honestly best to do it with where you can see the back bolts. That way, there's no possible way you can press down your tail. Like, no way, okay? And so here's the reasoning for this. So if you know how to slappy cricket grind, all right? Slappy cricket grinds, the front of your board goes up without you using the tail at all. So why is it for back 50s that you need to use the tail? You don't, all right? It'll bring the back of your board up. So if you're front foot heavy when you're going into it, you can be front foot heavy, but also kind of sitting in the back seat. That's what I tell people. So if you're like that, what happens is when you have that edge, right, the front end will go up and the back end will follow, all right? So this is your foot placement when you're learning. Now, for the approach, all right? Honestly, it really helps people a lot. Let me move to the other side of this curb so I'm not going downhill. What I think helps the most for the approach on this trick, if you have your feet, like I just said, where your front foot is, barely touching the nose, your back foot's not on your tail at all, you can go almost at a 90-degree angle to the curb and still get up on top of it. So what this forces you to do when you have your feet like this is the only way that you can get up the curb with your feet like this is if you lean heavy toe side. If you lean heavy toe side while you're doing this, and I always tell people to kind of have their toes hanging off just a bit. If you're heavy toe side, then what'll happen is that's what lets this heel side wheel just glide up the curb. All right, and I'll put the tripod down real quick and kind of show you what that means. So when you're learning this trick, you don't need as much speed as you might think you do. You can, if you have your feet where I told you to have them, then you could honestly go pretty slow, and you'll probably, as long as you go hard on your toes, you'll probably glide up the curb. All right, so if you have your foot in this kind of front area right where the nose slants up and your back foot is not doing anything, what happens is when you're at a hard angle, like harder than you would think you need to, it forces you at the last second, that hard angle, to go hard toe side, because otherwise you're gonna run straight into the curb. So if you go hard toe side and you're kind of on that front, you have a lot of weight on your front foot, what happens is it lets all the pressure off of your heel side wheel, all right? And then it tilts like this, and then it kind of just goes whoop, and it like baseball slides up the curb. So similar to front side cricket grounds, when I talked about that, I was talking about the curb standing you up. This is the same thing. Like, you want to go toe side until the curb puts you on top, all right? And it's very unlikely that you're gonna be so toe side to where you're just gonna whoosh out and eat it. Usually when people do this, they kind of get shocked by how easily they got up the curb. After you learn and kind of get them, like getting into them with this motion, then you can kind of have your foot kind of on the tail a little bit, because in your head, don't use your back foot. Don't press on your tail. That's the biggest thing. Because if you press on your tail even a tiny bit, what'll happen is you'll go toe side, but because your weight's on your tail, all the pressure goes off your front truck, and your front truck just glides right over the curb, and then you get into this weird feeble, and you probably stick, and you probably get smoked. Okay, so that's why I tell you, do not use your tail at all. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I shifted over to this curb because it's kind of sticky. I don't like it at all. So I'm gonna go slow, and I'm gonna go hard toe side without my foot on my tail at all, and I'll show you what it looks like at that hard angle, and I'll probably just get up and kind of just stop, right? But I'll be all the way on top of the curb. Everyone asks me all the time, how do you get fully locked in on top of the curb. Because most people, when they do slappy back 50s, they'll be kind of at like an angle like this. And the cause of that is not keeping your weight on like both toes. Because if your weight is only like, if you're hard weight on your front toes, that's great. But if you're not hard on your back toes as well, then what happens is you get into kind of like a crosslock 50, which is not a bad thing. Some people just can hold it longer that way. Me personally, I think it's better if I'm fully locked in, because then if I want to do something out of it, like say back 180 out or like shove out or something like that, I'm all the way on top, I'm really stable, and it feels like I can just stand up and go straight down the line of the curb. All right, especially on double-sided ones where your truck's locked in all the way. So I'm gonna do a few of these kind of slow, kind of stalling them, and show you what it looks like when I'm going at a hard angle and just kind of getting on top of it. All right, so since I kind of jumbled together all of that, the foot placement, approach, everything, I forgot to mention that it helps a lot if you square up your feet and your body when you're going at that hard angle. So what happens when you don't square up your feet, I know people will say like point your toes this way or whatever. That like really doesn't help, because if your toes are not square, like if your feet aren't square, it's harder for you to go hard toe side. Like if they're at an angle, your body it's gonna be hard. It's just the way your body works. It's gonna be harder for you to push harder on your toes if they're at any kind of angle, weird angle. But if they're square, if you're standing square, you can really dig into your toes to get up the curb. So I'm gonna do a few of them right now on the long double-sided curb. I'll do a bunch of different angles. I'll get like a close-up of the approach and probably slow-mo some and stuff like that. And I'll do some longer ones just so you can kind of see like how my body slowly shifts from being leaned away from the curb to like on top. So let's do some of them now. Had a little bit of a scare just a second ago. It started like sprinkling as soon as I went to start doing the back 50s. I was like, come on. So I was like hustling, trying to set up my phone different places, but it chilled out. I think it might pass, but it doesn't matter now anyways. Anyway, so now you guys have seen kind of the approach, how you put your feet, how much it helps to square up your feet, all those things. And if you have a curb that's just as wide as your truck's, like it's even on a curb that's as rounded as this, let me show you. It's like really rounded over. Like, I don't know if you can tell, but it's very hard to lock in on this curb. So even on this, that's why it like helps so much if you can get all the way locked in with both of your toe side wheels against the curb. Because then it's like you're not seesawing like kind of back and forth, and you can do things out like that. Kind of back 180 out was pretty spur of the moment. That was just decided to at the end. But you can make a decision like that halfway down the curb because you're so locked in. So that's why it helps so much. And this curb is about 30 feet long. So just to give you an idea, is like I could probably hold that I don't know, endlessly doing it this way. If I was doing it another way, I might not be able to hold it as good. So hopefully this helped you guys out. For those that are really trying to learn how to stand up all the way on back 50s or not lift up your nose at all, like press down your tail. I'm gonna really start cranking again on this YouTube thing, because I was kind of like, I moved back to Georgia, and then you know, I was trying to film all kinds of other stuff. There was like a Curb Junkies video that came out and stuff like that, so I was kind of working on that. And I'm working on, like, right now, just my own like solo curb part that I'd like to edit myself and drop. It'll just be at local spots around here. So anyways, let me know what you guys want to see next. Let me know if you know what slappies. I still have a big list of stuff that I could do. There's not a lot of trick tips on like board slide to feebles or anything kind of tilty like that out of board slides. So that might be something that people are interested in. Or there's not a trick tip on, say, like frontside hurricanes, back smiths, like slappy back smiths. That's one that's not out there. That one took me a minute to figure out. So anyways, I will see you guys soon. I'm gonna try to do at least, let's say, probably, I'm trying to do at least one video a week, so we can kind of crank through some of this stuff. I can play a little catch up. But anyways, yeah, drop a comment, let me know what you guys want to see next. Damn, the clouds do look kind of bad. But anyways, I'll see you guys soon. Later.